What are you drinking there?
LaCroix. Grape.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
Yes,
that's good stuff.
it's got the fizz and the pop that
The
has
fizz and the flavor.
the festive quality without the diminishment of physical and mental capacity.
That's correct. We've just gone live according to my notes. So everyone, my name is Troy Myers. I'm a graduate of the Stonecoast MFA in creative writing at the University of Southern Maine. We do a Sunday night reading series, my colleague and I, Amanda Plow, where we bring on alumni and special guests and faculty. And tonight we have a very special guest. Rick Bass is a faculty member in fiction at Stonecoast. I got to go to Ireland with him as part of one of my Ireland trips in the program and sit and workshop with him. It was a fantastic experience for me. Rick has written quite a few books that are widely read. Traveling Feast, which is creative nonfiction about Rick driving around with friends and visiting famous writers and having dinner with them, cooking dinner with them. For a Little While is a short story collection. It is award-winning. I've read the entire book. It's outstanding cover to cover. There's not a weak story in it. So if you don't have For a Little While, pick it up. Why Came West, also an award-winning memoir. See, I'm nervous, Rick, introducing you. I have such high opinion of you. And his most recent book is Fortunate Son, which is a collection of essays, which maybe he'll tell us a little bit about. That has just come out. So, Rick, we were here a couple of weeks ago. You had trouble getting connection, and you drove all the way to the hospital in Montana to have Wi-Fi, correct?
That's right. Yeah, no, I really felt bad. That was I could only hear about every fifth or seventh word that Cristina was reading, and then it just got worse from there. Yeah, apologies. But thanks for having me back.
Oh, of course. Well, it was a technical issue. There's nothing you could do about it. How far did you have to drive to get to this Wi-Fi from your home in the Yak?
Well, it's only 37 miles, but it's an hour drive. It's pretty rough road. Yeah.
Okay. And if folks don't know, Rick is also an ecological activist, proponent of the wildlands in the Yak Valley in Montana. And I think last time I heard your nearest neighbor is 25 miles away. Is that accurate?
Well, the nearest nice one is, yeah. There's a couple closer than that, but I don't visit with them much.
They're not real neighbors.
They're neighbors, yeah. You wouldn't want to go borrow a stick of butter from them.
Okay. So, Rick, how did you start writing fiction and why? Before we have you read, I'm just curious a little bit of your story for those who may not know you.
Shit, we may be having a technical issue. That's a hard question.
Oh, you don't have to answer that. I was just curious.
No, I'd like to try. I just have to take, we're not paying like a cab by the minute, are we? I can think for a second.
No, yes, you can think for a second. This is your time.
I mean, I remember reading that Flannery O'Connor said that she wrote stories that she wanted to read. And I always wondered about that. Would I want to read my own stories? And I thought I would. But when I look back at them, I don't want to read them because I already lived them, in the writing. I don't know why I write fiction. I read Jim Harrison's novella, Legends of the Fall, that really made me want to write fiction. But that's more of a catalyst. It's not a reason. I don't know. I mean, that would be, the topic of a semester or longer to essentially discuss what fiction can do that other genres can't. And I don't know the answer. I guess I'm still looking for it. But I do love fiction. There's a resonance, a vitality. For me, there's a quality of the opportunity or potential for surprise and discovery in every next letter, not even next word, punctuation mark, but just every typeset letter. Fiction is out there. It's interesting. It's fun. It's rambunctious. It's unpredictable. It's chaotic, disorderly, and it's almost always beautiful, even when it's dark. I mean, I'm sure you feel the same way about poetry. Yeah. And
I read poets as a teenager and felt like I had to write back. I wanted to do what they were doing. I suppose that's how I started, which is kind of like your Legends of the Fall story.
Yeah, community of beauty, community of order amidst disorder. Yeah.
Wow, that's wonderful. So you want to talk for just a second about your most recent book? What is Fortunate Son?
It's a collection of essays and journalism set in Texas, where I was born and grew up, and left, when I was 18. But my family's still down there. It was a really generative and influential, significant part of my artistic and environmental ethos was growing up in that land in which myth was celebrated, and veracity was rarely given much import.
Wow. What does that mean a little bit? Myth was celebrated. How is that different in Texas than somewhere else?
It was a culture of hyperbole and of I'll see you and go you one better, that kind of thing, and it had that Southern and oral storytelling, Gothic, what we call Gothic in the South. It was
right.
It was just what it was in Texas. It's like, oh, here comes a twister. Oh, good. That, kind of a celebration of disaster and hardship.
Wow.
And the grit of life. And, and you didn't let truth get in the way of a good story, or facts. Truth was more important than facts. It was just a real comfortable place to grow up, to be a storyteller. But, the landscape left me wanting more. So I scurried north and west as soon as I could.
That is a hell of an answer, actually. I'll think about that for a long time. And I've never been to Texas. Well, I've been to Texas once for work. Doesn't really count.
Well, yeah. I mean, like Texas, the Texas I write about in this book is long gone. So, I mean, some of it's contemporary, but it's, everything's a moving target. Remember Jim Harrison at his publisher, our publisher, Sam Lawrence's memorial. He quoted some. You'll probably know who this writer was. He said, traveler beware, the road is walking too. And so, my growing up years in Texas, like they're gone. Like I can't go back, and I can share what it was like and what I learned, but nobody can go back and, walk that road.
But you're writing about it, and that's what the book is a collection of.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Are you the fortunate son? Is that?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I didn't. I dodged, missed all the wars and grew up, white, middle class, without going to war. Heck yeah. Very much so. What's the responsibility in being so privileged? I think, what it is for anybody. Tell the truth. Yeah.
Wow. Well, what do you want to read for us tonight, Rick?
Go
ahead, please.
Yeah. Tell the truth and be interesting. I mean, that's the number one writer. Be interesting. Like, you don't hear the truth if it's not interesting, because we got other things to do, places to be. Yeah.
Tell the truth and be interesting. Love it. What are you going to read for us this evening?
An environmental hectoring and harassment and haranguement, uninteresting, but timely and critical and vital. I was visiting, with you and Amanda before we went alive. The state of Maine is God. There's, what do they call those things? It's going under the screen. It's really distracting to me. It's what they do on Fox News when I'm visiting my father.
It's the crawl. We'll put up authors. Amanda will put up authors' websites, or
what do they call that? Opticoin, or
I learned the crawl, but I don't know if that's what it's still called. Rick, you've just frozen.
I never believe. I'm just connected. It's like a magician's trick trying to hypnotize you.
Well, we won't hypnotize you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So you're going to read an ecological piece, you said, a harangue, you said.
Yeah, the state of Maine is in a unique and powerful position to help this 1 million acre valley up here in northwest Montana incredible rainforest, low elevation, swampy jungle of a place. 25% of the state of Montana's species of concern and endangerment and threatened status are found on this one forest, the Kootenai National Forest, which has just been a breadbasket for the timber industry for generations, and much to my grief and chagrin. But now there's this giant Trump era mega timber project called Black Ram. Towns and houses and shit are burning up, all over the West, but based on a Trump executive order from 2018, the Forest Service has targeted a 60 million board foot sale up on the Canadian border, 20 miles upwind from anybody's house. I mean, the wind always goes south to north and pushes the fire up the mountains and to the north, but this is as far north as you can get in Montana, in the United States, and they're sitting on top of this ancient forest that's about 1,000 years old, and it's never burned. It's got all these swamps and wetlands and magical fern grottos in it. And, large trees, 800 years old, bigger around than you can imagine, and cedar and hemlock, 314-year-old subalpine fir and spruce. The Forest Service doesn't consider a spruce old until it gets to be 315. So they've got a few months before they become old enough to be protected. So they're trying to get in there and clear cut it before they hit their 315th birthday. And we've been slowing them down, doing a lot of public outreach. But I mean, I'm very disappointed. I'm very impatient with the Biden-Harris administration. This really matters on its own. It's the most efficient way to sequester carbon, in these thick subaqueous roots down in the swamps of the old spruce and fir. I mean, they've got incredibly huge carbon holding potential in their roots in that wet soil. And once they clear cut it, it's just going to be a dusty desert. And they're calling it fuels reduction, despite the fact that this forest, which we've never even studied, why doesn't it burn? There's something secret going on there. Something, I mean, it's gap creation is what's happening. It's like a big tree will fall down and then it'll recycle younger ones in that stripe of light. And it's like a kind of music, seeing these big trees every now and then go down and these young ones come up. But they're all enmeshed. There's just incredible diversity in this forest. And I mean, I'm kind of rambling, but we're afraid it's going to be lost. But as I said, the state of Maine is fortunate enough to have the chairwoman of the House Appropriations Committee is Representative Shelley Pingree, and she can't tell the Forest Service necessarily to not cut old growth on the Canadian border, but she can say, we're not going to pay you to do it. We're not going to subsidize it. What we're going to do is pay you to go work where you ought to work and stop destroying, stop damaging the climate, stop endangering the most endangered population of grizzlies in North America, which is what relies on this Black Ram area. It's corrupt, and we need somebody to bust it up. And I really have hopes that Representative Pingree will be that person, along with her peers and associates on the Appropriations Committee, and more importantly, or as important, the subcommittee on Department of Ag and Forest Service that she also chairs. So if President Biden won't listen to us, then Representative Pingree will, and I'm grateful for that. So that's
those of you who are Mainers should write her, especially live in her district. Thank you, Rick. Let's hear your harangue then. Whatever you brought.
You bet, and thanks for listening to the long diatribe.
I can talk to you for 3 hours and not ever even get tired, but I do want to hear what you've written. So.
Well, that's really kind. I wrote it last week. Did you ever come across Morgan Talty, a fiction writer? I think he came a good bit after you.
Yes, but read on our program. Has read on this series. I'm pretty sure. Super cool.
Yeah. Like Cristina, another really great fiction writer coming through Stonecoast, and Morgan is guest editing an upcoming issue of the Massachusetts Review that's theme is climate. And so he was kind enough to ask me to write something for it, which I did. And he's edited it. And I only looked at his edits. I really shouldn't tell you this, but there's no traffic on the road. So I read his edits on the drive down here. And they're really good. but some of them I don't quite understand, so I may kind of pause when I'm reading. His stuff.
Fine.
His stuff is in pink or whatever color that is. I'm colorblind, but we'll give it a shot.
Absolutely.
It's called Beneath the Overstory. The northern border's different from the southern. It's porous. Everything still moves through it, coming and going, and the first impression a visitor gets is one of overwhelming health, whether on one side of the border or the other. Bears and wolves transgress and regress without apologies or boundaries, and so too do rivers, creeks, breath, and wind. The light that falls on one side of the border falls just as equally on the other side. To me, the borderlands of northwestern Montana's Yak Valley, 97% public land owned by you and me, epitomizes the word freedom. I grew up in South Texas long before there was any wall down there. I left when I was 18 and made my way eventually north to the other border, the anti-wall of the deep coniferous subboreal forest that straddles British Columbia and Montana, a land where rivers flow both north and south, changing directions much as a person or a country changes its mind. Beneath the shaded canopy of the subboreal, owned, recall, by you and me, lie the U.S. headwaters of the Yak River, the first place where water comes into Montana. It's the last place the light fades from as it sets each day, whether in summer's extravagant yellow-gold lengthening or in winter's harsh blue brevity. Beneath the overstory, cedar, hemlock, larch, spruce, subalpine fir, aspen, cottonwood, white pine, and more, lies an unmappable and perhaps unknowable mosaic of high elevation swamps and wetlands, fens and marshes, and tiny fairy grottos no larger than the space excavated when one or another of the old giants leaned slowly over, its root wad pulling up a chunk of the deep past, redistributing light and nutrients to that which is coming. To enter this ancient forest is to feel immediately that you are experiencing an unknowable cycle, unknowable pulse in that eternal rising and falling in this 1,000-year-old forest where, although the individual trees are but a mere 800 years old, the giant larch a remnant from the last period of global warming, unseen and unknown by us and our kind, the forest is built on the moldering carcasses of giants much older than 800 years. Beneath the ever-changing overstory lies a seething treasure house of biodiversity. Fully 25% of Montana's endangered, threatened, and species of concern are found on this one forest, the Kootenai National Forest. The Kootenai is the precise size of Yellowstone National Park, 2.2 million acres. Yellowstone, it will be recalled, has the protective status afforded a national park. Black Ram has no protection, and as such, the hounds of the Trump administration, still clad in brown agency uniforms, are rushing to liquidate this unique ecosystem before the Biden administration can lift a finger or, distracted, look away. And then I've got a sentence in here, a paragraph by itself that says, "Do not look away," and Morgan cut it. It's a good cut. This is a story then about madness, about an apocalyptic fire of idiocy in which the great burning foretold in biblical revelations is no longer feared but perversely desired, hastened. A burning in which we shall no longer be lonely or alone, for all shall perish with us. Surely the oldest forest in Montana, Black Ram, is also the world's bullseye epicenter of western larch distribution, Larix occidentalis, a fantastic tree that lives in extreme instances for nearly a millennium, and with one foot in the evolutionary past, yet one in the future, straddling as it does this borderland of fire and ice. It is the world's only deciduous conifer, as if it has made up its mind to go into the future, but carries with it useful evolutionary adaptations from the deep past. The heated breath of Pennsylvanian gymnosperms, but the cooler, calmer breath of the opposite strategy, the patience of coniferous evergreens. It is as if the tree is destined from its evolutionary beginning, evolutionary decision, to always occupy two countries, two ways of being. What we used to call diversity, what we used to call healthy and strong, what we used to celebrate. And so it's a pioneer, a survivor, like any of us. It is a miracle. The larch of Black Ram, the 800-year-old behemoths scattered through the rest of the old forest, including the spruce, which clock in at a mere 314 years of age. The U.S. Forest Service does not consider the true old growth until they reach the age of 315. You can understand now further the Forest Service's haste to push this proposed sale through, or a signature from the last period of global warming before the world became, for several centuries, cool, wet, and temperate. A world that cared nothing for the idea of borders. A world that was still centuries away from the earnest straight-line strip carved to separate the south of Canada from the north of Montana. The Forest Service assures us the 954 acres of regeneration harvest at Black Ram will make the land more resilient. They've already drained the ponds and wetlands that bordered the old forest, gashing them with bulldozers to bleed out like a heart-shot buck hanging from a tree limb, the once moist soil baking quickly to dust, with the subsequent and attendant dust devils the shape of things to come. The Forest Service assures us Black Ram is technically not old growth because their maps do not identify it as old growth, and that the maps cannot possibly be mistaken, that the old forest must be erased, the deep rot of 1,000 years of emerald-clad carcasses must be plowed up to scald and bake where once there was shade and ponds and springs and creeks. A garden, a genetic treasury, where many things would disappear without our even knowing their names. An unspeakable scientific poverty, that. The unspeakable moral poverty of extinction. The infuriating, humiliating poverty of arrogance, greed, corruption, and secrecy. The Forest Service is proceeding as if they've gotten word from the Biden-Harris administration, as they did from the Trump administration, that they will not be stopped, that on the Kootenai they may continue to do as they please, that leadership will look away. And then I have another one of those one-sentence paragraphs. The pigs have entered the temple. And Morgan, again, correctly has said, save your powder, cut that one. Here is not a fevered dream, but a shade-tolerant, cool water, fern trickle balm of a dream. A sojourn, a hajara, a ceremony known as river walking, might yet save the forest that was old back during the Black Plague, when the earth shed a third of its humans through a mere strand of bacteria unleashed from, well, no one is sure. Some human-caused perturbation, it's hypothesized. The forest at Black Ram, which shows no evidence of ever burning despite all the country around it burning repeatedly, was old long before the weed of Columbus drifted ashore as if shipwrecked, was welcomed, fed, feted, cared for. I don't know if it's feted or feeded. I think it's feted. I won't attempt to culturally appropriate here with a description of what river walking is or what it's like to embed oneself, actually embed in the lifeblood of an ecosystem, its river, and walk toward the beating heart of the source of that water, the heart which lies in the old forest, where the water comes into our country from Canada, filtering through the splayed roots of cedar and hemlock, through the grip of giant larch and spruce. But here is what it might look like. Here is what might get the Biden-Harris administration's attention, finally, with all their talk of listening to tribal concerns, though yet they continue to ignore the March 9th letter from Montana's Rocky Mountain Tribal Leaders Council, despite the legal provisions of Section 106 of NHPA, which they continue to ignore despite all their talk of climate justice and all their talk of empowering science and being mindful of the effects of climate change on endangered species, such as grizzly bears, of which the yak has 4, maybe 5 breeding age females with cubs. Dual citizenship bears, Mr. Biden, passing freely back and forth across that border, unmindful of NAFTA or any other agreements, treaties, or promises, broken or otherwise. What it might look like, a river walk, is this, where members of British Columbia's First Nations slip down toward the United States through this forest screen, this curtain of green, following, as if hunting, their water as it leaves Canada and comes into Montana. It is still their water, is it not? That we in Montana, in the United States, are simply borrowing, sharing, and which, as is the nature of water, will need to return to where it came from. Like the bears themselves that slip back and forth across this line in the sand, this lawnmower stripe cut straight edge through the subboreal forest, in feeble attempts to illustrate ownership. Canada and First Nations are loaning us this water, believing in good faith it will cycle back into their conjoined ecosystem, which knows no boundaries, no stripes cut through the forest. But we are appropriating it, altering it, evaporating and destroying it with our clear cuts and drag lines, our roaring, blatting, oil-dripping bulldozers and feller bunchers and skidders, all working within taunting stone's throw distance from the border of one of our few remaining international friends. And as First Nations representatives are wading the autumn or even winter's shallow, clear waters of the West Fork of the Yak, spelled Y-A-H-K in British Columbia, activists and indigenous people in the U.S. are wading north, the same water shuddering against their ankles. Kingfishers prattling, moose clattering up into the forest, the two sides moving toward one another, each carrying a document. We can only imagine what it says, what vows it contains, what entreaties, what declarations, what demands. Their ankles, our ankles, wreathed in the water that's filtered from the still living, still extant Black Ram ancient forest. One side handing across that invisible line a pen for the signing of the declaration, the conjunction, the confluence, the agreement, the commitment, the alteration, the correction, and then turning and riffle shuffling back home, but with the ancient trees watching and the old trees thinking, we might make it to 900 yet. We have seen some things, but we might yet live to see some more. And some of them might be, we might yet live to see some more. Oh my God. And then I had this phrase, and some of them might be wonderful, even beautiful. And that's a really good cut, yeah. But we might yet live to see some more. How can the Biden-Harris administration possibly expect to be taken seriously, either domestically or abroad, when hidden in the inland ancient rainforest of the Pacific Northwest, there is a monstrosity, an idiocy of this magnitude? Is it really worth it, fellows? The only nearby structure is 20 miles upwind and downslope. The two-direction fires in the west or anywhere don't want to go. Hardly a fire danger. The nearest sawmill, #boycott Idaho Forest Group, is one state over and already sitting atop a monopolistic glut of public lands logs, all but choking on profits, some hefty proportion of which they then send to Montana's politicians. True fact, look it up. Follow the money, our last few remaining journalists advise us, and this is easily done. It's of interest that clear cuts and regen harvest, such as those proposed at Black Ram, contribute only 3% to the domestic timber supply, and that the U.S. Forest Service, in administering such sales, runs the taxpayers a $2 billion deficit each year, dressing its soldiers in Smokey Bear uniforms and sawing down the giants and turning ponds and marshes into deserts, while back down in the front country, where towns and cities blaze as if doused with napalm, as the government continues to ignore the smaller diameter, less profitable buildup of wood in the forest there, instead goes on toxic pursuit of the last of the giants. In a public relations compromise, the Forest Service has generously offered the public who owns these trees to leave one old tree per acre amidst the desert. Standing next to an 800-year-old tree in Black Ram, knowing this, I can promise you the tree knows you know it. And it is a humbling and humiliating experience to be having that silent conversation. It's not for me to say what the tree is thinking or saying. You'll have to go there yourself, but you'll have to hurry. Either that or get a stay of execution. Well, all right, we've come far together. I'll tell you what I felt when I stood next to that 800-year-old larch. I felt the tree not so much being sad, but instead something like what you or I might call frustrated. As in, I had another 800 good years. I was just hitting my stride. I was just starting to do good. I was going to lie down and soak up a lot of water and take a few hundred more years to let younger trees spring from my chest and watch them grow old. I was going to feel the world from a different vantage. The tree was not afraid, but was pensive, considering the humiliation, the failure, I think, of being the only one left, worse than a survivor, and the loneliness. A tree without a forest is not a forest, is not even a tree. Who would do such a thing, the tree was thinking? What species and why? After all this time, I didn't really think they'd find me so far back here, the tree was thinking. Your species is dying, the tree communicated to me. You are more toast than I am, and I have only months. Madness, apocalypse, Biden, Harris. That's what I was thinking. But the tree didn't bite on any of that, as if the names of those people were really no different than those of their predecessors. The sky, the stars, the water, all the other inhabitants of the old forest. The old tree was thinking, I've somehow failed them. The old tree was certainly not thinking of Joe Biden or Donald Trump. Less than footnotes in the tree's ancient history. It was me who was thinking those names, those words, those abstractions, those tiny, failed hopes. What does the Bible say? Faith without deeds is what? Dead? Something like that. The tree had stopped paying attention to me whatsoever and was thinking sunlight, sky, God. The tree was thinking moss, beetles, bears, sun, rain, creek. One more glorious day. The tree was thinking. It was no longer conversing with me, had moved on. It was on its path to becoming 900 or not. There were larger things at play beyond my ken. I'm hoping the tree knew something I did not, that in its deep past, it somehow knew the future, that it would survive, even if we, its annoying agitators, did not. There is no wall. The U.S. and the new administration has heard the call of Black Ram and evidently intends to do nothing, to look the other way. To the south, a brick wall of fear and ignorance. To the north, no wall at all, only the porous skin of history, as the breath of ecocide falls now upon it and pushes back across the border into Canada. We once had Eden. Thank you. Thanks, Maine.
So, Rick, you've redefined political writing for me. That was absolutely gorgeous.
That's kind. I mean, it's hard to be. I mean, beauty matters. It's hard to be angry and still tend to beauty or serve beauty or traffic in beauty. It feels. I don't know. It's interesting. But yeah. Thanks for listening, and apologies, Cristina, for serving such a shit sandwich.
No. In fact, she's here now.
Awesome.
We're going to bring on Cristina Perachio. Hey, Cristina.
You're on mute.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Hey, everyone.
Hi, guys.
Text me if you need any technical advice.
So Cristina was here when we tried this a few weeks ago. We had the technical issues. She's come back. Cristina has a lovely family and a little baby. This is the third time she's read for us, which is, I'm sure, a challenge. Second time. And so we're very grateful. So Cristina, do you have a chance to hear Rick's reading there? Or?
I did. I really enjoyed it, Rick. Thank you. And thanks for sharing your edits as well.
You bet.
That was cool to hear. So you two worked together in Stonecoast and also in the book Traveling Feast. So tell me a little bit about that.
I was just thinking about you, Cristina, today. As anybody who corresponds with me through cellular devices knows, I'm really clumsy with my thumbs, and I can't see well, and so I'll send texts that I think are going to one person to another. And I'm still doing it, and I just get lucky every time. It's like, because sometimes you text something that's only meant for one person, and I think at one point Cristina was the recipient of one of those errant texts, but it was innocuous, it was mild, like, I hope I see you tonight, XO, or something, to whomever it sent to at the time, and Christina's like, I can't remember what your response, but it was like something like hello or something. Oh, sure. I thought that was, I'm sorry. And then Cristina, I hope you're right about this someday. You said, that reminds me of the time I received a text that my father sent to my mom. Oh, I had to claw my eyes out.
So Cristina, how did you meet Rick first? Was it before or after Stonecoast? Or
At Stonecoast,
Okay.
yeah. I might be repeating myself, but I think last time I shared that Dave Patterson said, if you want to get your ass kicked, that you should work with Rick Bass. And I was like, that sounds about right. So yeah, we met there, and yeah, I've had a great mentorship relationship with Rick. He's a wonderful editor.
How did he change your fiction?
That's a good question.
Can I interrupt? Not much.
Of course.
I don't know that that's true, but I think Rick just sort of helped me find my voice and be more confident and kind of find like the real story in whatever it was that I was trying to write or trying to convey.
Fantastic. You were mentored just one semester or more than one? Or?
I think more than one. Yeah, definitely more than one.
And then you traveled together a little bit for the book, right?
5 or 6.
5 or 6?
Felt like that, probably.
In a 4-semester program, 5 or 6. Good. Good.
We did. Cristina was working on, I can't remember where you were working, but we met up at a place in Philadelphia called 12 Steps Down.
12 Steps Down.
And talk
about
the project, and you allowed that you were handy in the kitchen, and I was excited about that, and I had this idea to do this, and you jumped in. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, no, it was really
How could I say no?
So I mean, it's hard to talk about it with the to straddle the line between reverence and irreverence, but and as time goes on, I become less interested in the irreverent, I wanted to honor my mentors who, were so kind and good to me when I was beginning to become a writer. They just welcomed me into the community and gave me advice and that confidence that Cristina talks about. And the you kind of have your voice, but you don't trust it, or you don't. Sometimes it's just too big for you to know how to use it, and so you need a lot of things, but you need support. And so I wanted to go back and thank, now that I was in middle age, I wanted to go thank the writers who had been in middle age themselves when I was a young writer, and it helped pull me along. And now they're in old age. And this is the part that's hard to talk about, but just kind of have to say it straight. Like, I knew they were going to live forever, and I wanted to go tell them thank you before they died, passed on, whatever we call it. And I didn't tell them that, in my letters. I can cook a meal for you, parentheses, before you die. But that was very much, in the back or middle of my mind. And an amazing number of them said, yes, please, come on, thanks. And I wanted to bring my best writers in both fiction and nonfiction to introduce them to these old, legends who, again, were someday going to die. And it made me really feel good and secure to be in the middle, to have, like my daughter Lowry, she's 19, a teenager, meeting, John Berger at the age of 90, like just that's almost 100-year difference between writers, and to flip that when Lowry is 90, what 19-year-old, and so on and so forth. So it was a tremendous journey, and it went on for years. The editor said, okay, well, you'll just do 30 writers in 30 days. And that's kind of what we signed the contract for, but it didn't work out that way. It took 2 years and 3 years for how many writers we visited, 14 or 15 of them. But boy, did we have fun. Yeah, it was a rolling party everywhere we went, either that or a rolling shit show, or both.
Who did you get to meet, Cristina? Who did Rick take you to meet?
So who did we meet? So we cooked for Tom McGuane and his wife. Actually, kind of like a whole party. That was unexpected and wonderful. And that was in Montana. We cooked for Lori Moore in Madison. That was all one trip, I guess, huh, Rick?
It was. We left McLeod, Montana, and drove through thunderstorms and past the Corn Palace and all other bizarre
Corn Palace of South Dakota.
Mary Gordon was there.
Mary Gordon, yeah.
And we finished eating about midnight, then talked about shit till 4 a.m. Then got up, had to get to 6 and go turn around and drive back west. Yeah, that was. It's always hard to say goodbye to the party. I remember that. It was a fantastic evening, a fantastic paella. My God, that was good.
That Midwestern paella.
Yeah.
And that's all in the book, Traveling Feast.
And Alexandra was there. She helped.
Alexandria,
yeah. Who was also, a Stonecoast student.
And Mary Gordon was telling everybody to not have babies, telling all the women writers to not have babies.
Yeah, and Lori Moore was pro women having babies and still being writers. And, well, all 3 of the women at that dinner either have babies now, didn't then, or are expecting. So we all listened to Lori Moore.
Lori. At that point, I excused myself and went to do the dishes. Yeah.
Right. And we hung out with Amy Hempel in Central Park because she was moving. We caught her on moving day.
That's right. Oh my God. Yeah, there's stuff that I can't. Yeah, holy shit, I forgot about that.
Yeah, her and Amy Hempel and her dog in Central Park. We had a picnic.
And we tried to catch up with Gordon and Gordon Lish, and he was he was loath to appear, but we left a bottle of hooch on his doorstep of his apartment. This beautiful golden amber ginger brew with cardamom seeds floating around in it, and lemon and orange pulp. And I wish I had quart of that right now. That was good stuff.
Well, hopefully he drank some of it.
I hope so.
Cristina, you have something to share tonight also, right? You brought some fiction for us? Or?
I do. Although I feel a little funny reading it now, but I will, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. We were worried about anything technical on Rick's side, so we put him
that was smart.
Through it 100%.
Yeah. No, that was smart. But yeah, I'll just read a couple pages of a short story called Strike. It's not yet published, but we're just gonna go ahead and dive right into that.
You can read more than 2 pages if you want to.
Okay.
And then we'll bring everyone back at the end to say goodbye. If you can hang out, Rick, for just 15 minutes or so.
Oh,
if you can
read the whole shit or read, please.
All right. Thanks, Rick. Okay, this is called Strike. There's something magic about a book of matches. The first set you remember is the big long matches with the colorful tips that your grandfather would use to light the fireplace in winter. How they would glow a neon color for a moment, a flick of pink or green or blue just before igniting. He showed you how to light them by striking them on the worn brick beneath the mantle or on the bottom of his work boots. Your mother collected matchbooks from restaurants and bars she'd been to over the years or from places she'd traveled. There was one from Las Vegas with a pink flamingo on it and one from Fort Lauderdale with a topless woman riding a dolphin. She kept them in a great big round fishbowl. It made your world bigger and smaller at the same time, having the knowledge those exotic sounding places were out there and knowing the way you will always know your childhood phone number. They were unreachable. Some of your first memories are digging your fingers into that bowl, the feeling of your nails across the striking strips, making your arm hair stand on end, or dumping them out onto the carpet, alphabetizing them or organizing by color. Sometimes she'd have a story. Sometimes she'd make one up. They were usually about some old boyfriend, a date, or a weekend road trip, but they were never really about the men. She was the star of all the stories. The men boiled down to their cars, the make and model, or the jeans they wore, or the kind of beer they drank. Yes, you can remember the matchbooks, the bowl, and the stories, but you can't remember the first fire you started. And isn't that strange? You can feel it in your heart like a big swelling balloon. You can smell the sweet, sour sulfur, a rotten something left on your fingertips, but you can't remember the time or place. Can't remember what you wore or whether the sky had been bright or gray. It's a feeling that you carry with you. It makes you sick, it's so good. There's a sadness to it, light going out, and that's part of it too. You remember one summer, though, when your fire starting went from childhood curiosity to compulsion, a time when your mom is mostly gone, but not all the way gone yet, and your dad is there, but not there from how you remember it. So you spend a lot of time with your grandparents, and they're the first to notice your new bad habit when you set a paper napkin on fire, and it bursts into flames that run like a demon across the living room carpet to your kitchen. The old linoleum bubbled angry like American cheese in the microwave. You'd never seen anything go up that fast. After that, your grandparents start sending you to work with your grandpa on hot and damp Philadelphia summer mornings. Not exactly as punishment, more to keep you out of trouble. You go almost the whole summer without incident, and for that, your grandmom gives you her old CD Walkman, the kind that comes with a cassette converter so you can play it in the car even if there's no CD player, which there isn't. She tells you it's supposed to stay in the house. She's afraid of you getting jumped, even though you explain that defeats the whole purpose. Your grandfather's landscaping business takes him out of Orchard City and into the main line. You like driving with him out there, even though it's so hot and the air conditioner in the truck doesn't work, but just pushes out weird, musty smells. It's early enough that you can speed fast down Baltimore Avenue with the windows open. Fresh cut wet grass and car exhaust calms your early morning nervous stomach. When you get to the neighborhood where the big houses are, you have to wait in the truck until there's something for you to help with. You gather sticks strewn in the yard, pull weeds, sometimes run the push mower, but mostly it's a lot of waiting. It's during a rash of these boring, swampy days that you begin sneaking the Walkman out of the house, wrapped in an old dish rag and hidden at the bottom of your backpack. You carry the bag in your arms, guard it like a pet until you're alone. Then, while Grandpop is off trimming hedges, you climb the tailgate of his truck and play one of your dad's old burned CDs, Queen's Greatest Hits. You are in love with the dramatic, operatic sound of Freddie Mercury's voice. And you'll have a few blissful weeks with that love until you suffer your first heartbreak when a neighbor boy tells you that he's dead. Been dead since before you were born, the boy says, nonchalant, which seems both unfair and impossible, hearing the ferocity of Mercury's voice through your headphones, as strong and steady as your own pulse. On one of these particularly boring work days on the main line, you're lying in the truck bed, sweaty and itchy with pollen, having finished pulling out dozens of dandelions from the side yard of one of the biggest houses on the block. You're listening to your Walkman and lighting clumps of grass on fire with a lighter you found in the truck. You can't understand why anyone would want to get rid of dandelions in the first place. The way they blanket the yard from far away had reminded you of the road to Oz. It's during the second verse of Killer Queen when you feel something sharp hit the side of your face. You look around, stunned, and take off your headphones, but don't see anyone at first. The boys come up around the other side of the truck. There's 3 of them, 2 brothers and a third. The brothers have the same ugly, crooked nose. When the third sees that your lip is split and bleeding, he starts to back away, and you can see in his face it must look worse than it is because it doesn't even hurt. Where'd you get that? The older one says, pointing to your Walkman. Yeah, the younger one says. How much dick did you have to suck to get one of those? All 3 boys laugh at this. Did you steal it? I bet you did, little thief. You put your headphones back on, but turn the sound off. Let me listen. Yeah, what are you listening to? You don't want to talk to us? Yeah, you don't want to talk to us? Don't be a bitch. The older brother reaches to tug at your headphones, and you smack his hand away. They laugh at this too, and you go red in the face. Leave me alone, you say. Calm down. We just want to know what you're listening to. Let us listen. The younger one snatches at the Walkman and wrestles with it, pulling you down off the truck, but you won't let it go. Jesus, are you going to let a girl win a tug of war, you faggot? He looks away for a moment to curse out his brother, and you shove him back, letting go of the Walkman, so he stumbles, falls backwards. What's your problem, you little bitch? They chase you around the truck, so you're between it and a big oak tree, hidden out of sight to any neighbors. Give it back, you keep telling them. What are you going to do for us? Yeah, what do we get if we give it back? They're in your face so close you can see Cheeto orange between their teeth. They're a lot bigger than you. One of them pins you to the tree. The older one slides his zipper up and down and hums a tune in rhythm. They're all laughing as if this is the funniest thing in the world, and you try to wiggle away as he loosens his grip. Where do you think you're going? I think she wants it, man. She can't wait any longer. I bet she's a virgin. Are you kidding? All girls from OC are all sluts, you dumbass. Don't you know anything? He puts his sweaty hand up your shirt, and you reach in your pocket for the lighter and flick it on under his elbow. He screeches loud, pushing you in the dirt. She burned me! She's a witch! He stutters, his voice cracking. You stumble to your feet and start running toward the backyard. One of them says, "You forgot this!" and chucks the Walkman into the pavement. You hear the plastic shatter, but you don't look back. When you get home, you half-heartedly lie about slipping in the gravel driveway, even though no one asked. Your grandmother is suspicious right away, but just sits smoking at the kitchen table without saying anything. Her eyes red and narrowed. She takes some kind of medicine, for what exactly you don't know, that keeps her up most of the night, drinking coffee and smoking and sometimes talking on the phone to a cousin in a different time zone somewhere out west. By the time you and Grandpa get home, she's usually ready to crash, sleep-deprived, nerves frayed. You do your best to stay out of her way until dinner. Outside, cicadas hum their summer song, loud as the sun burns. Outside, cicadas hum their summer song, loud as the sun burns a deep orange hole into the hazy Philadelphia skyline. Your cheek throbs and it embarrasses you thinking about the boys. In your head, you can hear the dirty things they said to you, and a twist forms in the back of your throat. You wait until you see your grandma through the upstairs window, going to her room for a nap, and then sneak an old notebook out from underneath the porch. You sit in the dirt on the side of the house facing the train tracks. At first, it's just little scraps of paper, and then you start letting whole pages go up, singeing your fingernails. Breathing in the little twirling trails of smoke, you can feel the knot in your throat loosen. The tinny creak of the screen door snaps you out of your hypnosis. What the hell are you doing? Your grandmother is on you so fast you don't have time to lie. She boxes both ears until there's ringing. You can barely make out anything she's yelling. When you beg her to stop, she gives up, almost softening. Why are you doing this to me? She says, turning her back to you as if it hurts to look at you. And something about it, the way her voice shakes a little in the middle, makes you start to cry, which you hate. Big choking sobs and blinding hot tears. You feel small and sit back down in the patchy grass with your hands over your sore ears. Then it comes tumbling out of your mouth all at once about the boys and the nasty things they said to you. She listens, her hands on her hips, looking down the tracks at some unknown point on the horizon. You wonder if she thinks about leaving the way your mother did. So easy to just get on one of those trains to the city, then to New York, all the way up to Maine, and keep going. Walk right over the border until you reach Niagara, the last place you got a postcard signed XOXO, love you, baby, Mom. It makes you nauseated all over again. You're still gasping for air when she opens the screen door and tells you to go inside, get cleaned up. We're going for a drive, she says, her voice stony, almost calm, as if nothing had happened. I'll stop there for now. Thanks, guys.
Outstanding, Cristina.
Thank you.
Based on what you've read this time and the last time, you really know how to write asshole boys.
I've met a lot of them, so.
Okay. Rick, what are your thoughts? You haven't heard that before.
That's I'm just so excited. I love the it was not a typical arson story.
Yeah.
It's fire being used positively, not, obviously can be symbolic for destruction and regeneration, but never, salvation. Like, okay, you're in a bad spot, just burn somebody's elbow. Like, fire is our friend. Fire makes bad things go away. It's awesome. I love that. And then the quick turn to the grandma, why are you doing this to me? And then she turns her back on the narrator. And then that lovely girl power at the end. Come on, we're going for a drive. Those fucking little dicks are they're in for trouble.
That's right.
I can't wait.
Thanks.
That's magnificent.
And you wrote in sustained second person, which I don't hear often. I'm not a fiction writer, but I was impressed by that choice also. You. Yeah, is it not finished, or is it coming out in publication, or are you shopping?
I'm still trying to get it out there.
Okay, cool.
So we'll see. Yeah.
Well, outstanding material, Cristina. Thank you again for coming back and working with us on our reboot of the Rick Bass episode.
Man, I'm glad I missed the first one. If that's the reward for hearing that.
We recorded the first one, and she read her other story, so you can always go back and hear that. But or maybe you did hear it. I can't recall. But Rick, I am so grateful you came on. You drove all the way to the hospital, an hour down the road. You read from a draft that had live edits, essentially. You shared what had been cut by the editor, by Morgan, and I thought that was just so authentic and genuine and humble. I dug it. It was wonderful to have you.
I'm the most humble person there is.
Well, you're very kind to me in the program. We're just about out of time, but I'll in 1 minute tell my Rick Bass story. I was in a workshop with Rick in Ireland. It was a mixed workshop. So you had poet and fiction writers. I write poetry, so I turned in my 4 poems. And when Rick pulled them off the printer, I guess the university, wherever he printed in the library, there was some undergraduate crappy ass paper on William Blake underneath my poems. And so Rick thought that I had written that and wrote all over it, was really distressed about how to tell me that it was a complete piece of junk. And it wasn't mine, but the level of his distress was indicative to me of the depth of his humanity. And I say this, Rick, again, hearing you talk about fiction in that opening section. you truly are a genius. I don't know many, but you can cover so many things at once. Your mind is so capacious and your prose is so gorgeous. Winter's harsh blue brevity. Like, that's what I like to do, is write lines about winter. And that is an outstanding line. So thank you so much for coming on.
My great pleasure. And thanks, Troy. Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, Cristina. Proud of all of y'all. Hey to Casey and Mayala. And
thanks, Rick.
Again soon. Hope.
We'd love to have you guys back next 2 weeks, because we're going sort of every other week or intermittently during the summer. But Lindsay, Jacqueline, and Josh Gothier will read in a couple of weeks. And then we're actually going to have Ted Deppy reading from Ireland. In fact, it's 1 a.m. over there. So Ted's willing to be awake at 1 a.m. to read for us. So that'll be in September. We'll keep you updated. Check out our Facebook page, Stonehouse Readers. We update there. And I'm working on a website, which is scary, but I'm trying anyway. Cristina, you're back. We can see you. Anything you two want to say before you go? How did it feel? Did you enjoy reading together? And
oh yeah, I'm always happy to see Rick, and and loved hearing you read. I missed it.
I'm so glad.
Likewise. And give Representative Pingree a call, everybody. And Cristina, send me that story. Yeah, I love the postcard from Niagara. It's I can't wait to see it. That's awesome.
I'd love to. Thanks, Rick.
Killing it.
Thanks, Troy and Amanda.
I'm gonna leave the meeting.
All right, you two take care. Have a wonderful night.
Bye, guys.
Bye.